Welcome, 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 my noble thespians and my everyday sluts. I'm your host, Dawn Westbrook, the biggest slut of them all. With my glass of Chardonnay, I hope you'll join me with a glass of something. And for the next few minutes, I'm going to introduce my new podcast, simply called ACT, where we're going to focus on the craft of acting, the art of directing, and embracing the process of this crazy career in the theater. I have some wonderful interviews lined up in the coming weeks, but first, tonight's show is being brought to you by the Martha Hill Newell Playwrights Fund, whose commitment is both to local and national playwrights, and holds the belief that the relevance and vitality of American theater depends on the continual infusion of new work.
I hate cops. I despise them. I hate their breed. I hate everything they represent. I hate everything they stand for because, you see, cops are, by nature, unbelievably stupid. And they have sort of an isolated power that even the very wisest and strongest men would have trouble embracing. Consequently, these morons have no chance whatsoever. And the less moral balance one has to begin with, the more corrupt one becomes. Power does indeed corrupt. I hate intensely every kind of cop. Detectives, transit cops, security guards, bank dicks, inspectors, meter maids, sheriffs, SWAT teams, deputies, military police, crossing guards, Royal Mounted Police, park rangers, safety patrolmen. I hate them all, and I think they should die. I think if every one of them were wiped out, snuffed, destroyed, massacred, the world would be a far better place. Cops are truly the lowest kind of scum on earth, followed closely by restaurant managers.
So Cliff Morts, who I just saw roll his own cigarette, and we had to wait for you to stop coughing. How are you?
Well, aside from the little coughing fit, by the way, this is my last vice. You see this cigarette? This is my last vice. I don't have any vices left. Well,
No.
At least not public vices.
Right. Well, wow. I have a ton. So I don't roll my own cigarettes, but I do have a ton.
Yeah. You know, I met, I did a thing with Jeremy Irons, the actor, many years ago, and he rolls his own cigarettes. That's where I got it from. And I'm like, wow. Jeremy, you're worth $1 billion. Why do you roll your own cigarettes? He said, oh dear, the carcinogenics, don't you know? So apparently there's less carcinogenics in the rolled cigarettes. That's when I started rolling my own.
Plus, too, it makes you look kind of masculine. It kind of makes you look kind of butchy. So,
yeah,
it was
God
kind
knows
of
I
tough.
need all of that. Yeah, I need all of that masculinity I can get. My testosterone level is like -6,
That's okay. I have no estrogen left either, so we're good to go. It is so good to see you. You and I met in the 1990s at Mill Mountain Theater.
The early 1990s.
But no, we met. It was a new play festival. Actually, yes, I was there to do the new play festival, but you were actually in the show that was closing up, which was the Glass Menagerie, and you played the gentleman caller.
I was doing the gentleman caller. I later, about a year later, did Tom in that, which I enjoyed doing a lot more than the gentleman caller. But yeah, I was doing the gentleman caller, and I believe Mary Bess Bova directed. Is that correct?
Yes, who is still a very good friend of mine, and she moved to Richmond. Her husband, the vegetable and fruit man, David Bova, his, they had that fruit stand in Roanoke, Virginia, and he was the fruit and vegetable man that had that stand on the corner when you came out of the theater. And they got married, and then she moved to Richmond because his business sold to like Loving's Produce or something. So she's here with her 2 sons, and now they have family land in Charlottesville, Scottsdale.
I believe that's where Sissy Spacek is, as a matter of fact.
Yes, so they both have horse land out there. And so I actually saw Sissy in Whole Foods here in Richmond. And I was like, don't they have one of these in Charlottesville? I'm like, I'm sorry, nobody's talking to you, but I have to. And The Help had just come out. And I was like,
the only reason I know that, Dawn, is because, and I don't know if I can get away with saying this or not, but I'm going to go ahead. What the hell? She's doing a 3-episode arc in Heavyweight. So
Is she?
yeah, she's coming on board as the mother of the trainer, and it's a great role, and she's attached. Yeah. So that's how I
Wow.
found that out because they told me she lives in Charlottesville. So
She does, and I actually did. I saw it in Whole Foods, and The Help had just come out, and I thought she stole a couple of those scenes.
she
I
steals
thought
every scene she's ever been in.
she is. She's brilliant, and I'm so glad you got her on board. Yeah, but
Yeah.
Mary,
Well, I didn't actually, but they did. Yeah.
yeah, but you've got her on board, which is
Yeah.
fabulous. So we'll talk about heavyweight in a minute because that's a very exciting thing. And about 2 weeks ago, you had an article in Variety, right?
Yeah. About I think it was 3 weeks ago actually, but yes.
Right. And ever since you said, we'll talk about it in a minute, like I said, but when that article came out, your phone started ringing and actors started
blew
coming out of
up.
the woodwork.
Yeah, my phone blew up. People who I hadn't talked to for years were suddenly, how are you?
That's so funny. You got a part for me?
Yeah, right. By the way, do you have anything to do with casting? Which of course I do, but my answer would always be, unfortunately I don't.
Right. And this is going to be, you're on with HBO and you are a writer, a head writer for them. And this is your script that you were in. That was a stage play that you're now converting to screen. Is that correct?
No, Heavyweight it was entirely written for television. Yeah, it was entirely written for cable. Yeah, no, it was never a play.
I did not know that. I stand corrected. And you said you've done a few of the scenes already and you're waiting for other writers to come on board to help you out. Is that the deal?
No, I've done the first 6 episodes actually.
Episodes.
Are written. Yeah, and we're interviewing now for the writers' room, and I'm talking to some real heavyweights, no pun intended, some really, really good writers. Excuse me, and I'm looking entirely for, I had a little, again, I've signed a non-disclosure, so I can't go into this, unfortunately, but let me just say that I'm shooting for like playwrights out of Chicago and New York. These are the people I want working on the show.
Wow. Well, that's fantastic. And I think in a few minutes, we're going to talk about anybody that's listening that is an actor, director, casting, writer, that you've lived in New York and you've lived in Chicago and now you're out in LA. And I think you probably have a lot of experience and a lot of advice for people that are looking to maybe work in one of those 3 or all 3 of those to be bi-coastal. But so Heavyweight, I haven't read, but I did read, was it Small Prayers?
Praying Small.
Praying Small.
Praying Small. Yeah.
It was wonderful. I just read it today and I loved it. And it was up for, I'm going to toot your horn a little bit here. It was nominated for a Pulitzer, correct?
Nominated for a Pulitzer back in 2008, yes, and it won all sorts of awards in Chicago as well as here in LA. And then they did a production that didn't do so well in New York, which I was kind of disappointed with. But
really, can you say where it was?
Yeah, it was at some place called the Producers Circle.
Okay.
On 47th Street, I think.
I was going to say it's Midtown in the 40s. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a production company called Love Creek, which was some people that I had gone to school with in undergraduate school.
Where did you go to school?
Missouri State University. Back then it was called Southwest Missouri State University.
Okay.
That's where I went to undergrad, yeah. And then NYU later.
Wow. So you brought them on. I actually was reading it and thinking, because I do a lot of directing here in town, and I was thinking,
put it up there. Put it up.
I am going to, you know what? I will, well, that would be wonderful. But Virginia Rep is probably the bigger theater here in town. And they have a little black box that it would work really well in.
The more intimate and the simpler the production, the better.
That's what I thought.
Tell, yeah, when you read the script, you can see it's just all about bare bones theater.
When I read a script, usually unless somebody sends it to me and says, hey, I'm looking at you for this role, most of the time I always visualize it as a director, and I could just see how you would light it, where the actors would go in and out. And I love the narrating of Sam, the main character, how he has those soliloquies, not soliloquies or asides like, Shakespeare used. They just stop from the scene and he looks out and talks and he includes the audience. And I love that.
Yeah, it's not really a soliloquy. They're literally speeches. They're literally, I break the fourth wall. Well, I don't, but whoever's playing Sam breaks the fourth wall and talks directly to the audience.
I thought that they do break the fourth wall and talk to the audience. They used to get them involved in Shakespearean times. I thought that's what.
Absolutely.
And
Shakespeare did that.
Yeah, so that's why I was thinking that it was that. But anyway, yeah, getting the audience involved and you break out of the scene. And I love there were some callbacks, like some scenes that read almost cinematic in the
Yeah,
fact that you use some of the same lines and we flip back and forth in time. And I loved that.
yeah.
You
Thank
know,
you so much. Yeah, it's very much non-linear. I took a chance on writing it that way, but I thought that was the only way. The play's about alcoholism, and for those who don't know, and the only way I could really get to the meat of the matter was to do that, flashback and coming back and forth.
I
That
loved
was
it.
then, this is now sort of thing.
Yeah, the actual lines, and then you go, oh, I've heard those. And you go, oh, that was in the first scene. So you go back and forth, and I do love those flashbacks and then coming
Thank you.
forward, and you get a little bit more each time. So I thought that vehicle was just terrific, and I love that you
Thank
used
you so
that.
much. That really means a lot to me, coming from you especially, because you're such a smart lady.
Oh, thank you. You're so sweet.
By the way,
I'll
when I
take-
first met Dawn, for everybody out there, we had this big sort of communal dorm where we all lived. We all had our own room in the dorm, and
oh my
so I came
God.
around the corner and I saw her, and I hadn't seen her before, and I think I said, hi, my name's Cliff or whatever, and she said, hello, my name's Dawn, in that voice. And I said to her, I said, that's the sexiest voice on a woman I have ever heard. Now, on a man, it would be Mike Tyson, but on a woman,
Why, thank you. I appreciate that. As I've gotten older, my voice seems to have kind of not gotten as raspy. It seems to kind of have gone up a little bit, but
Really?
I have enjoyed, my mother had a very low voice, but she had like nodules on her vocal cords. And so she had that kind of raspiness. And I have
you
always loved
did. You
raspy.
had that raspy. It was like Lauren Bacall. It
Yeah,
really
I don't
was.
have it as much anymore, which is
No,
great.
you don't. No,
Mm-mm.
you don't. I'm noticing that now. But back then, it was really that smoky
Kathleen
cocktail
Turner,
lounge voice.
yes. Kathleen Turner, Lauren Bacall.
Or Kathleen Turner, yes.
All of those. But yes, I remember. And I remember going, well, I'll take any compliment I can get. So thank you for saying that to me back then. But we did work together at Mill Mountain Theater in the early 1990s. And
Yes.
then you were not a writer at that point, correct?
No, I wasn't. I may have been playing around here and there, but mostly no, I wasn't at all. I was making a living entirely as an actor back then.
Yeah, and a really good one. And I remember
Thanks.
seeing you. And then you and I they used to offer a little lunchtime theater. Do you remember that?
That's right. The
Brown bag.
lunchtime theater box or whatever it's called. Yeah.
And Mary Best, who we mentioned a few minutes ago, it was something about like John Garfield, like not the day John Garfield died, or it was something like that. It was like John Garfield, something, that movie star. And my
Right.
character was kind of, hyper girl, kind of, really kind of like the character in They're Playing Our Song or in Butterflies Are Free, that kind of.
Yeah. I do vaguely remember it. I don't remember exactly what it was about.
No,
but I
we did it.
vaguely remember
We did it
one
book
act
in
that we did,
hand, but I do remember we were very good together. I remember that we had
no,
a
we were
nice
fantastic
connection.
together. We were.
And
Absolutely.
Mary still talks about it. She says out of
Does
all
she really?
out of all of the brown bag lunches that they did, that was one of the most well received. So there you go.
Yeah, I didn't know that, and I love Mary. She's one of my Facebook friends, and every now and then we chat. But we've kind of lost touch, which is too bad because I'm such a fan of hers.
She's just terrific, and she was a fan of yours too. So I'll have to let her know that we've done this and that we're
Yes,
going to
please
air
do.
this
Yeah,
week.
shoot this over to her. Yeah.
So you started off, you went to Missouri, and then you did stage. When did you start getting involved? Because I have to say, I looked at your IMDb. It's quite a long list. You did The Divide, Tony Goldwyn. He was in it
Tony
and directed
I
it.
did the Divide. Actually, Tony and I did. I was hired to do this TV show called The Unknown, a horror.
Yes,
anthology.
I read that too. And Dexter and Redlands and Criminal Minds. I have to say, you play a really good creepy mean guy.
Yeah. Criminal Minds was. It was a bad guy. I was a bad cop, so it's so timely,
Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think at the end of
Criminal
this,
Minds was funny. Yeah, and those I got to reconnect with Joe Mantegna, who I actually did a play with in Chicago, and we were friends in Chicago. Then we lost touch, and then I came out here. I got hired to do Criminal Minds, and Joe and I walked on the set, and he was like, you'd think he might forget or something. Screamed out, Cliff! stuff.
Yeah, theater peeps, always theater peeps. He's always been one of my favorites. But no, your clips are so good, and
Thank you.
I remember you just being, when I was sitting in the audience and watching Glass Menagerie, you came on. Gentleman Caller has that one scene, and I remember thinking, God, he's just so real. He's so
Thank
real.
you.
I believe every single word he sang. It doesn't
Thank
seem
you,
like
yeah.
it's scripted. And that is still, and really, if you are good on stage like that, normally you move right into film very, very easily. And you are,
Right.
you're
Well,
great.
I think one of the big problems with a lot of theater people, really good actors too. I mean, we've both met a lot. Really good actors. They have a little trouble bridging the gap and throwing away lines.
Yes.
You know, there's something about when that little green light goes on the camera. I have seen so many brilliant theater actors just freeze. Some can make the leap and some can't. But it's all about out here. It's all about, you know. I used to teach acting, and I would tell my students, you know, stage is about acting, and film and TV is about behavior. You know, and once you can understand
wonderful.
that, it's you know, then it's smooth sailing.
You know, I think you're so right on that. I've done some film. I did actually, where I kind of made my, you know, film camera work was commercials. I had kind of a commercial look. I did print work and things like that. But I did do some movies that were here in town, and day players, nothing really big. But it is so interesting to me, Michael Mastro in week 2, who you said you had met in New York.
We met briefly in New York, I think twice, as a matter of fact. I'm such a fan of his. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, he's one of my best buds. But he talks about, you know, I'm going to talk about the generation now, and they're all about the phone and recording and YouTube and Instagram and all these little stories. So they're always used to, their best friend is that green dot. Their best friend, they know how to connect with it. So really, actors that are coming up in now all know how to use that camera, and they know how to use it well. My daughter could, you know, in 7th grade was recording, you know, songs and videos, and so natural looking. But
you know, I never thought of that, but you're absolutely right. They've got a leg up on us, don't they?
They have a leg up, and they also know. Michael talked about, I asked him, you know, what kind of equipment would you tell theater actors they need to have? Because back in the day, we did not need equipment, because it was, you walked through the door and you did your live audition in New York or with a casting director. Now everything is on film, and given the coronavirus and COVID and nobody being together, we're seeing a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of recordings. You know, a lot of this, we're both in a box right now, but a lot of this, you have to kind of keep it contained in the box.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And, you know, along those lines, you know, I used to, my acting teacher of note in New York was a guy by the name of Michael Moriarty. And you probably know Michael.
I do know Michael, and I actually went to 2 of his classes. He used to have him in his apartment, and he would have you in chairs.
I studied with him for 5 years, absolutely.
Brad Greenquist was
a mutual friend of ours.
Do you know Brad?
Brad is one of my best friends.
Oh my gosh.
We talk all the time. If I have anything to say about it, he'll be on Heavyweight, you know. Brad is a very close friend of mine.
He was terrific.
You guys went to school at Commonwealth together, right?
We did, Virginia Commonwealth University. And he actually, he lived in New York for a little while. He did the classes with Michael Moriarty, and I went with him twice, and just sat in the back and just observed. And then he decided, I want to move out to LA. I want to do this. And he got Pet Cemetery right away.
Yeah, and he did.
And he was the runner, the jogger that got killed by the Mack truck, and then
he was
haunted.
So good in that.
Oh, he was fantastic. So that's so nice that you know him. I'm hoping maybe I can get him on here one of these days. But he's one of the ones.
Are you in touch with him? Because I'll call him right after we get off the air here.
You know what? You call Brad Greenquist and you tell him I said a big hello. And yes,
I will put both Brad Greenquist and Jimmy Barber in touch with you, and you will have 2 great shows.
Oh, thank you so much. I have, you know, local people here that I know, and I'm trying to mix it with people that I consider successful on, you know, in television and film.
Successful kind of,
Yeah, and so, you know, I mean, success is relative. I mean, I actually asked that question on my Facebook page not too long ago. What do you consider success? So let me ask you that. What do you consider success?
Well, as a matter of fact, that little My Story thing that's part of Facebook where you can put up My Story?
Yep.
I put up a little drawing there, and it basically says what people think success looks like, and it's like a straight line straight up.
Yep.
And then next to it is what success really looks like, and it's a line that goes like this. And then finally comes out at the top. That's what I feel about success. My God, I mean, some of it was my own doing, my own self-destructive tendencies back when I used to drink. But
Right.
a lot of it had to do with the fact that it just doesn't happen simple like that. Nothing's
No.
simple,
No, nothing is simple. Sometimes people seem to get lucky. I think it takes a little luck and a lot of talent. And sometimes people just get very lucky. It's just, time and place. But I know so many talented people who, haven't, people go like this. They say, if you're in a show and they go, oh, have you done anything that I would have seen? And you go,
right.
not if you blinked your eye,
Yeah.
no.
Right.
But different phases of my life for me as far as success I've always been goal oriented, but for me, success in New York was, did I have food in my cabinet? Did I have enough money to take a cab home as opposed to taking the subway late at night after doing, a showcase in Brooklyn or something? So success, that, and then I decided that I didn't want to live in New York for a long period of time. So I moved back to Richmond, and I was getting job after job after job. And that was when I met you in the early 1990s.
Right.
And I was just
now,
on a roll.
Did you work at Theater Virginia before?
I did.
Yeah. Bill Gregg. Did you know Bill?
I do know Bill, and I do want to have him on here, and his sweet wife, Liz. Yes, I love them both.
Okay, they're good friends of ours too. We, it's such an incestuous world that we live in.
It is. It really is.
We know so many of the same people.
We do, and I think Michael said too. It's all about those connections. It's about just. And for me, it's not working the connections. For me, it's just about being honest and really caring about other people and just doing your best. Don't have an ulterior motive, just, and success for me then after New York was, did people want to hire me back?
Yeah.
Did people want to cast me again? And if they said yes, then that, in my opinion, and that's been my
Absolutely.
go-to.
And we were just talking about Mill Mountain. I think I did like 15 plays there because they just kept hiring me back. And listen, it's a paycheck and they do great work. I was always just delighted to be there.
Yeah, it was that place where we stayed across the street. That building is down now. I think it was condemned, but it was not exactly the most luxurious place. But the actors there made it a very fun party, and we used to go to the bar across the street.
Absolutely, it was a ball. It was, it used to be a whorehouse. I don't know if you knew that.
I did, a brothel. Yes, I was going to say that it was a brothel, and so they used to say too that it was like haunted or something like that.
And it was haunted. I believe that with all my heart. But the funny thing about it was that every now and then, that buzzer in the front door, you had to go up those long steps.
Oh my God, yes.
The buzzer would and I'd go down and I'd open the door and it'd be this old guy, like somebody like around, in their 70s. And they're like, can I still, come up and pay for whatever? I'd be like, man, I'm so sorry. A bunch of actors live here now.
Yeah, you don't want to come up here. It's a bunch of actors, and we are just no goods. It's horrible. I do look back fondly at that time period, and for me, success has been, do they want to hire me again? And now it's, as a director, do they want to bring me in next season to direct something? And so that has not changed. It came food and cabs to, do they want to hire me again? So no, but you're getting back to TV. You're also on Dexter, right?
Dexter was my first TV show here in town. Yeah. It wasn't a very big role, but I got a chance to, all my scenes were with
Michael C. Hall.
That was my first taste of big time TV. And he used to come wheeling in his Jag, literally 5 minutes before we started shooting. He would jump in the chair, do makeup for 2 minutes, jump on set, and say his first line. When the scene was over, he walked out, he got back in his Jag, and he drove off. And I'm just like, I was so sort of impressed with that, you know. It was like, wow, that's how you do it, huh?
Well, we talked too. Part of one of the reasons I started this podcast is to talk about process. Actors all have their own process, and everybody has a different way of going about it. And Michael talks about how Al Pacino during Paterno would listen and watch Paterno on video on his phone. When he wasn't on, he was listening to it. He was trying to embody the character and would watch it. But that's probably something he would never do for something else. He was playing a real person and needed to really bring that. I think a lot of eyes were on him to really try to bring Paterno to life.
Sure.
A lot
of, you're right. Everybody works differently. Tony Goldwyn used to, when we did The Unknown together, Tony he would just be talking sort of casually with me, and then completely ignore Martha Coolidge. The great Martha Coolidge directed it, and then she would say action, and he would like finish his sentence and maybe say a few other words, and then just turn and the same tone of voice start the scene, because he knew they could edit it to however they want. But he did that on purpose because he wanted to make sure he was totally conversational. And again, I learned so much from that. I asked him why he did it, and he told me.
Just to kind of.
He said, "I don't want there to be any difference between acting and my conversation."
So you go, are you acting now or are you not?
Right. I was just, I had to listen very carefully to hear the first line.
Great in Scandal. And the first time I ever saw him, I think it was the first time. I know it was the first time he ever scared me to death, was in Ghost. He was
Ghost, yeah, and that was he lobbied hard for that one, yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I tell you what, it was a really, Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore. You just loved them, and they were so sweet, but you start thinking, is he the guy?
Yeah. And that, we talked about that a little bit, and he, it was both a good thing for him and a bad thing. The bad thing was he did it so well that it took him a long time to get out of that villain typecast. Everybody wanted him to do a bad guy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, but he finally broke out of it, but it haunted him for a little while.
Yeah, he wasn't a bad guy in Scandal. Not really.
He was.
So, Praying Small, right? Am I saying it right?
Yes, Praying Small. Yes.
Okay, and it is about. I'm going to go back to that before we talk about Heavyweight, which is your new project coming up with HBO. But Praying Small was a lovely script, and like I said, I finished it today. And so, is it autobiographical? You've talked about being in AA and being a recovering alcoholic. It almost reminded me of Bill W. It's that I'm buying into, and you truly have to embrace a higher power in order to be successful. How did you go about, why did you start writing? And was this your first script?
No, it wasn't my first script. I wrote a bunch of, actually, I had a couple one-acts done in college. And then I had a couple, I forgot to mention this to you earlier. And then I had, I think I had 3 plays produced in New York, none of which were successful, and frankly, none of which were very good.
Okay. Maybe that's why they weren't successful.
Yeah, right. And then Praying Small I wrote, and it debuted in Chicago, and the recovering community sort of latched onto it. Okay. And all of a sudden we were just filling the house night after night, month after month after month, because word got around. It was totally word of mouth. It was a small theater. We didn't have money to really publicize it.
Word of mouth is always the bestseller. It's the bestseller.
And the AA people just came out of the woodwork night after night after night. In answer to your question, it's actually not autobiographical. It is, however, informed by 1,000 meetings in 1,000 church basements.
Right. And I think the article that you sent me too about it when it was at the Actors Workshop in Chicago, that you come from a family of alcoholics. You said that in the...
I do. None of which are in recovery. I probably shouldn't talk too much about that, but I'm the only one in recovery. It's a disease that has filtered through my family for many, many generations. Yeah.
Well, bravo to you for being in recovery. And I know a lot of my friends, a lot of people in theater have an issue.
A lot of people in our business are in recovery.
A lot of people are in recovery. Yeah. And I just think, I used to bite my fingernails. Okay. That was a horrible vice of mine. Now I still have a lot of vices, but I don't bite them anymore. But I just remember how hard it was to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And
Well, if only I had that vice instead of the one I had.
you know what? But it's a habit, and you start to realize, this is not easy to do. This is not easy to break. And now it's sweets for me. It's like I have to have something sweet after I eat. So if somebody said you can't have that, I'd be like, no.
Don, tell me I'm diabetic. All I do is these days is think about sweets.
Oh.
It's the bane of my existence.
Well,
Of
you know
course, I
what?
never eat them.
If you are, you have type 2 diabetes, is that correct?
Type 2, yeah.
And so it's a good thing that you don't drink, because that can be a huge
And that was a
bugaboo.
big reason why I became type 2 diabetes, because in my 20s and 30s, I really drank to excess, to say the least.
Your liver and your pancreas kind of can't keep up.
That's
and
exactly
so
right.
it
My
starts to-
endocrinologist said, the reason why you became diabetic late in life is because of the heavy drinking early on.
How old were you when you got diabetes?
I was diagnosed about 11 years ago.
Okay. And you've had a couple of hospitalizations. You almost died, right?
I was in a coma. I was in and out of the hospital for about a year, 6 months, 4 months, 3 months. Yeah.
Wow.
It was very scary. And
Mm-hmm.
it gave me a new lease on life and a new understanding and appreciation of life, a massive amount of gratitude. We were talking about Jimmy Barber,
Yes.
some of my friends stuck close to me. Jimmy was right by my side the whole time. Let me
Good
tell
for
you something,
him.
Don. Get
Good for
really,
him.
really sick and you find out who your buddies are.
You know what? That's true. Sometimes too, when you get sick, a lot of people don't like hospitals, number one. And then two, illness makes people nervous because their own mortality comes to the forefront.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't want to like be a burden or like be a problem, like looking like they're nosy or being a busybody, and they want to just give you time
Oftentimes
to heal.
they just don't know what to say.
It's the same thing when you lose somebody. You don't really know what to say. And
Yeah.
so it's not until you've been in it that you realize, oh, this is how I should act. This is what I
Right.
should do. You don't want to, overstay your welcome, but you also want to let the person know that you're there for them and you care for them, and not
Yeah.
just have it be lip service.
Well, I don't hold any ill will about that, because listen, I'm in Los Angeles. Life goes on no matter what. This
Mhm.
is a big bustling city, and being in the industry, things just keep moving no matter what.
Right.
So I think that it wasn't so much that people forgot about me or weren't worried about me. It was just that, hey, everybody's got a life. They got to make a living. They got to move forward.
Everybody does, and it doesn't just happen in LA or New York or Chicago. It happens here in Richmond, Virginia too. And and now with coronavirus, you can't visit people in the hospital, and people that have comorbidities like yourself, diabetes, and you have to be very, very careful. So let me ask you real quick. We're going to talk about New York and Chicago and LA, but how has coronavirus impacted the theater community, and putting like production on hold? Tell me about that.
Yeah, there's nothing. Everything's dead in the water, including my series and everything else too. I don't think anybody's shooting anywhere. I heard that they're shooting in New Zealand, but it's definitely not in LA. I'm not sure. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think theater will ever be the same again?
You know what? We talked about this. Lucian Restiva, who's the artistic director at Richmond Triangle Players, we talked last week, and I will tell you what. And Michael Master, I've talked to Michael and his husband Richard, and if and when we can get bodies back into the theater, right into the seats, then how do we keep actors safe? Because you cannot direct something and keep people at a broomstick's length, right? You have to be able to be, and musicals, certainly, there's a lot of spit flying, a lot of people, a lot of sweat, and people have to touch and hug and kiss. And so you can't really do it if you can't really.
I don't know, unless we actually have a vaccine.
Yes.
That is swept nationwide and everybody takes the damn vaccine. I don't see how it can ever be the same. And they're saying that possibly August, September, a possible vaccine. If that happens, maybe we'll get our theater back. I don't know.
Well, I haven't heard August. I've heard the beginning of the year. But boy, I hope you're right and I'm wrong.
Apparently there are trials in Sweden right now that are fairly successful. I hope so.
Yeah, I do too. Dr. Fauci, is it Fauci?
Fauci, I don't know.
Fauci, I think it's Fauci. He was saying that, if you do one of these vaccines too soon, that can be bad as well. And I know that the virus is also mutating some. So it's hard. We never got a vaccine for
Is
SARS.
it mutating? I hadn't heard
It
that.
is.
Is it?
Oh,
Oh my God.
viruses always do. My husband's a doctor,
Yeah.
and he said they always do.
Your husband's an MD?
He is. He's an anesthesiologist.
Well, see, now you're successful. You're married to a doctor.
Look, being married to a doctor isn't what makes me successful, honey. I am successful on my own. It does make for a nice lifestyle. I'm not going to lie. And he's a very funny man.
Right.
Even without the laughing gas, he's very funny, and we enjoy being outside. We have a daughter, teenage daughter, but no, it does. It does make for a comfortable lifestyle. I don't have to worry from paycheck to paycheck. So I'm blessed that way.
Yeah, you are. And if he's hooked up with you, I bet I would love him. I bet we'd get along great.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet to say. So yeah, we don't know what's going to happen with COVID or coronavirus, but I can't imagine. Comedies need to be done and people need to be sitting side by side, and it's a shared experience. So I don't know when we'll be able to get audiences back in those seats, and they certainly can't be sitting 6 feet apart or three chairs. I went to a funeral the other day, or actually I went to a virtual funeral, and the camera was in the back of the house. I'm calling it the back of the house, the back of the sanctuary.
Right, back of the house.
Back of the house. Yeah, there's me as a director, right? I can't help it. Back of the house. Yeah. And you just saw the back of people's heads, and everybody had masks on, and they were separated by rows and all sitting in pockets and separated. And it was the most sterile, horrible thing to watch and realize the family couldn't be hugged.
Yeah.
You can't hug right now. And it was just, I don't know. I'm just not so sure. I do know that the theater community here, all shows were halted. I directed a production of The Cake that closed just in time. And it was like March 6th we closed. And the next week, everybody was, locked in at home, quarantine. But there were shows that had just opened. There were shows that were in production. I know Doll's House Part 2 at Virginia Rep. They were just starting rehearsals. So everything's either been put on hold, told we're not going to do that season anymore. We're just going to pick up where we left off. Theaters are trying to do anything they can right now to, make funds, bring in funds. It's very tricky.
Yeah.
So we got to keep those people employed, and a lot of people on furlough.
Yeah. I just don't know. I just don't know if we'll ever be the same again. I hope so. And let's face it, we're living through, we're in the middle of living history here. What is happening here with this pandemic? I know it happened in 1918, but, we're just in the middle of history.
We are in the middle of history. And then, you have too, all of the, the riots and the protests and the police brutality. And you wrote this play back in 2005, but I'm going to have you do the monologue that stuck out to me.
Okay.
And you're saying it as a white man, not liking cops and police being brutal.
I'm saying it as a privileged white man.
As a privileged white man, I'm telling you what, it is, power. You talk about power in that, and it being it can be abused. And you get kind of a cocky sense of self, and then you're seen in that with the detectives.
And Don, you're absolutely right. And, I am a progressive liberal Democrat. I am all for defunding the police departments. And defunding does not mean disbanding. It means defunding the militarization.
Yeah, breaking it down.
Yes. And I have seen with my own eyes the instigation and the cops incite violence here in Los Angeles. I've been appalled. I've been aghast with what they do. I am not an apologist for the police department. I have seen them behave horribly, and I am stunned.
We all have, in seeing some of these videos, and I had, this podcast is not for a political platform at all, but you can't not be involved.
I'm sorry about that.
No, I'm glad we're talking about it together. I'm the one that asked you to do this monologue because I think it's so relevant. I'm
going to do 2 for you.
You are going to do 2, and you're going to send them to me. I can't wait.
I'm going to send them to you, yes.
I'm going to put one of them in the beginning and then one of them at the end. We're going to bookend.
Okay, great. I just got to figure out how to do it on my phone.
Very not technically savvy, are we?
No, we're not at all technically savvy.
But
It took us, by the way, if you're watching this, it took Don and I a long time just to
get to
me
get him
this
up.
far.
I can't hear you. You need to unmute the button. Do you see the red slash through the
Right,
microphone?
right.
Very funny. But it is an interesting time. We are living, through history. And I did you by chance look at the Broadway Advocacy Coalition? Did you there was the 3-day last week, and the non-Black members were invited on the third day. And
No,
Michael told
I
me
didn't.
about it. There is a pledge on their website. Some of these pledges and petitions to sign are somewhat confusing to me, but theirs was very laid out, very simple. It's almost like the Lord's Prayer. It's you just go, okay, I know what this means. And yes,
Really? Okay.
I will pledge to do whatever I can on my part as a director and as an actress. I don't have a whole lot of power in Richmond, but I will do my best to
Right.
try, to try to be a liberator, to try to, just do my best, just try to be
Right.
better.
Yeah. What I tried to do, because I really didn't know any way to jump in and help either. I was flummoxed. I was like, what can I do to make the world better? It's trapped in my little apartment here. What can I do? And so what I finally decided is a lot of my students who were in my acting class, I contacted them and I said, let's just go online and, you work up some stuff and I'll give you free, a free hour, whenever you want.
That's
so
great. Where do you teach? Where do you teach it? Where do you?
I teach out of my own place. It's called Naked Face Studios. I only teach one-on-one. And when people have big film auditions or TV auditions or whatever, they hire me to come in and we work on that very specific audition.
Well, that's wonderful. You know what? Give me that information. And guys, if you're listening, I'm going to post it onto the Facebook page where we talk about Cliff being on week 4. And maybe we can get some people to contact you. You don't need to be in LA to have this wonderful man work with you.
Absolutely not. And as long as the virus goes on, Don, I'm doing it free.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. Okay. You heard it. You heard it from the man himself.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, that's very generous of you. And I may take you up on that. So let's talk about life in New York as an actor, someone in the arts, talk about life in Chicago and life in LA. Talk about that a little bit so the listeners can learn from you.
Well, that's a great question. Here's what the first thing I noticed about LA after I was here for a little while. My wife at the time, I'm divorced now, but my wife at the time was an agent. And she sort of gave me a lot of great advice that I otherwise wouldn't have had. Right. So I kind of got a refresher course every day. But here's one thing I noticed about LA. In New York and Chicago, more so in Chicago than New York, but really both cities, cream will rise to the top.
Okay, right.
You may not have an agent, you may not have a manager, you may not even have many credits. But if you're fucking good, you're gonna get noticed. You're gonna get noticed. Now, that's not the case in LA, and I learned this early on. It's not about talent in LA, it's about who reps you. It's about who gets you in the room.
Wow.
So, and all you have to do is turn on the TV any night of the week and watch to see that that's true, Right. There's a lot of stuff going on here in LA that's just abominable. I mean, let's face it. I'm not picking fights. It's just bad work.
Right.
It's about, LA is all about who represents you, period.
Wow.
Now, of course, sometimes you get some really talented people that are represented by high-powered people. Right. But a lot of times you get people who just are pretty. They're just pretty.
Yeah. Well, LA is kind of about that, unless you're a character actor. I mean, they really.
Right.
I remember.
Yeah, it's never a problem for me because I'm not pretty, never have been. But
you're quite handsome. You're a handsome devil, Cliff. When you were rolling that cigarette, I was just like, my goodness. He just.
Yeah. Right. Okay. But anyway, especially in Chicago, if you're good at what you do, eventually, it may not be right away, but eventually, you're going to be working Steppenwolf. You're going to be working Goodman. You're going to be working the big venues, and people are going to know.
You worked at those theaters?
I have worked at both. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Wonderful. New York, not so much the same because New York's a little bit more mired in the old school. You still got to have William Morris or whatever behind you.
Yeah.
To get on Broadway. But Broadway's not really Broadway anymore anyway. It hasn't been for decades. Broadway's about musicals. It's about Disney now.
It is. It is a lot of musicals. I think producers just want to make sure they can get their money,
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
But there are
They're
some
really great theater, in my opinion. I'm talking before the coronavirus. The really great, brilliant, chancy theater is being done regionally. It's being done in places like Theater Rep,
yes,
Theater Virginia, or
Rep.
whatever.
Yeah, Theater Virginia is no longer. It disbanded. But Virginia Rep came in, and
Virginia Rep, yeah.
Nathaniel Shaw.
Are they in the same building as Theater Virginia was?
No, that was in the Virginia Museum. That is no longer. There is a theater space there, but
Okay.
Virginia Rep is downtown on West Broad Street.
I got you. Okay.
They have it. It's just a lovely. It's the Empire. Well, it's not the Empire Theater. It's the Sarah Bell November Theater now. And then they have a little black box that's attached. And both
Black box, praying small. Let's do it.
Yeah, you know what? I really do want to direct it, and I'm going to send it to Nathaniel.
You would be brilliant directing it.
I would love to direct it. I would really, and I would keep it. And I love that you keep this. You can do it very small cast, and you can and do multiple parts. And then you can also, pretty bare stage. You can do it very bare bones.
Dawn, I'm telling you, all you need is 2 chairs, a lighting system, and a sound system. That's all you need.
Yeah, I could see it in my head. When my head starts to spin when I'm reading something, that's a good sign. I can start saying, it really is. It's a great sign.
That's great.
Yeah. So
and you're a script reading veteran, so you could really see it as you were reading it.
I really could, but there's some scripts that I can pick up and go, I have no idea what I would do with this, because it just is not.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too.
I don't know what I would do with this. But no, I really do love it. And now let's talk real quick about Heavyweight. And
okay. Now I have to say right off the bat, Dawn, I have, I sent the script out to a few friends who I really want to involve. And I got in big trouble. So I had to sign a non-disclosure. So I have to speak only in general terms.
That's fine. I think we'll take general terms. Listeners, we'll take general terms, whatever we can get. But I know that you can speak about it because it was in Variety 3 weeks ago, and that was where actors were coming out of the woodwork.
Right.
Hello, knock, knock, knock. Cliff, can I have a
Yeah, right.
So talk about that. When did you start writing it, and when did you submit it, and all of that?
I wrote the first draft with my writing partner, R.D. Call, who has since passed away. I'm sorry to say. He was one of my best friends.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he passed away. And so we wrote the first draft together, I think maybe, 5 years ago.
Okay.
And we got turned down by a lot of different places. And then 2 things happened. We had a creative directorship change with the cable company involved, HBO, and also Ray Donovan got canceled. So that left a big hole for a boxing script, because before, when we got turned down by Netflix, we got turned down by HBO, Showtime, whatever. They all said the same thing. Ray Donovan, we don't need anything else. Ray Donovan is already covering that.
Right, I gotcha. So tell me what Heavyweight is. Can you tell me what it's about? I mean, obviously
it's about it's about a Comanche, a full-blooded Native American who is homeless and penniless on the streets of Chicago.
Okay.
And it turns out that he actually is this savage, incredibly talented fighter, much like Mike Tyson, much like a young 21-year-old Mike Tyson.
Oh my goodness.
And it follows his life from his the first moment he walks into the gym until every episode ends with a fight. Every episode is climaxes in like a fight with Jimmy Redwood.
Sounds like my marriage. Every day it ends in a fight.
Yeah. So we have the pilot. I've written 6 episodes. I'm talking to some incredibly talented writers that we want to bring on board, and that's it. And now let me also be clear. Even though it's about boxing, that's just a platform. That's just a stage that I use to launch a lot of other themes, a lot of other subjects that I talk about, including police brutality, including abuse of power, including there's a very prominent homosexual relationship. So we deal with a lot of things in the script that I just use boxing to launch. I just launched the theme there.
Wow. Well, that sounds fantastic. And you have you signed on for 13 episodes. Is that
13
correct?
episodes, and then we live or die after that.
Wow, live or die. Well, we hope that it lives. And so
Thank
if
you.
you're out there, I will, once you can once it's up, and I guess production is kind of stopped right now, but when is it supposed to maybe come out?
Oh, we're looking at it a long ways down the road. We're not actually doing anything right now. The virus
Okay.
has everything shut down. We're
I
dead in the
know.
water, but probably 2022, I think, if we're lucky.
How wonderful. Well, hopefully, if I'm still doing my podcast, which I hope I am, I'll put some information I have Twitter and Instagram and then my Facebook page.
That's wonderful. And I'll send you that information.
Please do. And normally I start with asking, what are we drinking? But because you are a recovering alcoholic tonight, I don't know if you noticed, you can see me, but they can't. I put seltzer and ice and lemon in my wine glass.
It looks fantastic.
It is
It
very
looks like
good.
a giant gin and tonic, which I would have easily drank back in the day.
Well, no,
And it would have been that big too.
Here I'm working, so I can't drink too much. But anyway, no, tonight I thought, out of respect for what we were talking about, the script, and then
you
for you.
needn't have done that, but thank you.
Oh, don't think I'm not going to have one when we're done. But I just wanted to know while we were.
As I recall, Don, back in the day, we hoisted a few in Virginia.
I think we
were
did.
Working together. Yeah,
I think we did quite a few.
I think you would have a couple of drinks, and I would stay and have 15 more.
Yeah, at some point I would have two. And when I was doing musicals, I definitely couldn't drink too much. I would have to go back. And luckily, it's not something that was a problem for me. But I do love a nice glass of cold Chardonnay. And now we're in the middle of this heat with summer. But I have one more question to ask you.
Of course, go ahead.
So I always finish with, if you had not been so talented as an actor and a writer and director, what do you think Cliff Morts would have ended up doing?
That's really easy. I would have been a veterinarian.
Really?
I love my dogs. I love my dogs. I love animals. I love small animals, cats, dogs, hamsters, everything. I'm just deeply in love with animals, and I believe they're better than humans. They love unconditionally, and they are the perfect companion. I don't think there's any question I would have been a veterinarian.
Well, you know what? You would be a good one. And I tell you what, I do love my dogs. So I don't think I could be a vet because I can't stand reptiles. So I could never hold a snake. I would never have been able to do that. But I was going to go into medicine, and I just got my Master's of Science in Healthcare Interpreting. So even though I'm not a doctor, I hang around hospitals and doctors' offices all the time. So I'm getting to do that, and I love it. So yeah.
Great. That's wonderful.
Well, you have two phone calls to make, I believe. I think you're going to call Mr. Jim Barber, who,
I am.
Yes, he and I were in the play Zeke's Vision when you were doing The Dropper that won. I think it was a playwright competition, and your play won. But Jim, this is a funny story about Jim. I have to say this. I was playing his wife, and when I came to rehearsal the first day of the read-through, the table read, I went, oh my God, he's so young. He's like, I don't know, 10 years younger than 15 years younger than I am. And I went to Mary Best, and I was like, Mary, she went, no, it's fine. He's so tall. I mean, he's very statuesque. Yes, he's a very tall man, very talented, but he was in there as a straight actor. So I was doing the play, and one night, they had that building, the Mill Mountain Theater was in that building. They had rehearsal rooms. And I remember, I don't know if I had a costume fitting or something, but I went through the hallway to get to the dorm, and I heard this voice, this rich baritone, sexy voice. And I had to peek through, the door, wood doors have panels. And I peered in, and I think it got steam on and it was Jim.
Yeah, sure.
And I remember opening the door going, oh my God, I didn't know you sang. And he went, no, it's really what I do. And now he's done Broadway Beauty and the Beast. He did Les Mis. He's done Phantom. He is the real.
He's a major Broadway star, yes.
He's a major Broadway star. And, he played my young husband, but he is quite good. And I listen to his music every now and then when he comes out with a new cabaret or a new recording. So he really is. So if you all don't know his
something
music.
Else. His voice is a gift. It's a force of nature. It's a gift from God.
You posted something about him, I think, a couple of weeks ago. But what I'll do on my Facebook page, guys, I'll promote his new recording, something that he's got out there, so you all can listen. And then also, Brad Greenquist. You're going to call Brad and Jim.
And I'm going to call Brad too, and I'm going to set him up with you. Brad is also a fantastic actor who we both know.
I have a note on the door that says "Do not disturb recording." But anyway, here's Carl.
Well, nice to meet you.
Yeah, I guess he thought I was talking to myself because I've got on my headset.
I better let you get back to work.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to have to edit this out anyway. But so Cliff has an HBO show that's going to be coming out in a couple of years. He's a script writer, and he and I work together at Mill Mountain Theater. Wow. So yeah, called Heavyweight.
Oh, yeah. I'm single now. Gosh, I miss being part of a couple with moments like that.
Oh, well, really? Because I was thinking how nice it would to be single right now. Anyway, but you've met the dogs now, and you got to meet my husband who interrupted us. I can't thank you enough for being a guest, and I wish you the best out in LA. And as you keep your diabetes in check, don't have one of those ketoacidosis moments, the coma. Don't do that again. Promise me you won't do that again.
Thank you.
Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll keep up with each other, and don't be a stranger.
I won't. Dawn, you're absolutely wonderful, and you're beautiful, and you are smart and sexy, and I am just so privileged to be on your show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
They say it's impossible to dream your own death or to even imagine it because, you see, we don't know what it would be like. We have nothing to compare it to. We have no reference point. And I think that the same is true of your life. It's a crapshoot, and it's truly beyond my comprehension when I try to understand the thousands and thousands of years, the millions and billions of casual, random, haphazard choices that make up my presence. Thousands of years of coin flipping, a heads, a tails, then another tails, and then a heads, and a tails, and a heads, and a heads, and a heads, and a heads, and then a tails. Thousands of years of that. And then at the end of all of that, there's another person, another human being, who has the same casual, haphazard choices before them, the same selections. And they all intersect every so often. And then there's another person that has before them the same casual, haphazard, savage choices in their coin flipping. And they have intersections too. And then even more impossible, the intersections intersect, and suddenly, without a snowball's chance in hell of doing anything about it, you're suddenly in love, or a father with children, and a drunk, and completely clueless. We cannot save ourselves from this arbitrary, capricious existence. And so we pray. We ask God, the big crossing guard in the sky, to make our intersections as painless as possible. Please, God, please, we say, no more. No more, it's enough. Just slow me down, and let me breathe. You don't have to help me, God. No, you don't have to help me, but please, don't hinder me. And if we have any sense left in our heads after a lifetime of casual atrocities, accidental monsters, and incidental happiness, we learn to scale everything back. We learn what only the very wise and enlightened understand. Please, God, give me a few seconds. No, less, a moment, a heartbeat, a blink of peace. Can you do that for me today? And the rest, I think I can carry a little longer.
Well, I think that about does it for this podcast. I can't thank you enough for listening. Remember, you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter under ACT. Or you can visit my website at www.dawnwestbrook.com and feel free to ask questions, give suggestions, and feedback. But for now, as W.C. Fields once said, a man's got to believe in something. So, my noble artist and my everyday sluts, I do believe I shall have another drink. May the footlights burn bright and your actions both on stage and off be rewarding. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Dawn Westbrook, your host, and this is ACT. This week's podcast is sponsored by the Martha Hill Newell Playwrights Fund, whose commitment is to both local and national playwrights, and holds the belief that the relevance and vitality of American theater depends on the continual infusion of new works.